I stared at my phone, heart racing, as my father's cold voice declared, "You're terminated. 8 years of sweat and sacrifice for our family's company. Gone in a heartbeat. At 28, I faced the ultimate betrayal, who turned my own blood against me." Before starting this story, if you are listening from USA, please leave a comment with number 9. And if you are from another country, please leave the name of your lovely country. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to listen to more stories. The spring rain tapped against the glass of the cozy Denver coffee shop, a gentle rhythm that clashed with the chaos erupting inside me. It was a crisp morning in 2023, and I, Nora Caldwell, 28 years old, sat tucked in a corner booth, my latte steaming untouched before me. My phone buzzed, slicing through the hum of barista chatter and clinking mugs. Victor Caldwell's name, my father, flashed on the screen. I smiled, expecting his usual gruff check-in about our family's pride. Caldwell Building Solutions, where I served as Vice President of Operations. Instead, a voicemail notification appeared. Odd. I pressed play, holding the phone to my ear, oblivious to the storm about to shatter my world. Nora. His voice was cold, stripped of the warmth I'd known since childhood. "The board has decided to restructure. You're out of the company, effective immediately. Your access is revoked. Do not come to the office. Do not call back." The message cut off. 20 seconds that obliterated 8 years of my life. My hand trembled, the phone slipping slightly as rage surged through me. A wildfire scorching my chest. How dare he, my father, the man who taught me to read blueprints at 10, who hoisted me onto his shoulders at construction sites, had discarded me like a flawed foundation slab. The coffee shop spun laughter from nearby tables mocked my unraveling reality. I clenched my jaw, refusing to let tears betray my fury. I was the backbone of Caldwell Building Solutions. 8 years of 70-hour weeks, countless nights poring over contracts, and a vision that doubled our revenue. My brainchild, Riverfront Heights, a sustainable urban project, was set to redefine Denver's skyline with solar panels and green spaces. I'd poured my soul into it, believing it was our legacy mine and my family's. Now, it was all ash. My fingers hovered over the call button, itching to demand answers, to scream at the injustice. But something stopped me. Pride, perhaps, or the bitter realization that begging would only fuel his satisfaction. Instead, I opened our text thread and typed a single word, "Acknowledged." I hit send, my heart pounding as if I'd slammed a door shut on my past. The barista called my name, her voice piercing the fog of my anger. I stood, legs unsteady, and retrieved my latte, murmuring thanks through a forced smile. Back at my table, I stared through the rain-streaked window, Denver's streets blurring into gray. My mind raced, replaying every moment of devotion I'd given to the company, the late nights, the awards, the clients who trusted me not just as Victor's daughter, but as Nora, the woman who delivered. And yet, he'd severed me without a word of explanation. The betrayal burned deeper than I could articulate. A knife twisted by the man I'd idolized. I wanted to storm his office, to hurl my pain at him, but I knew it would change nothing. Gathering my bag, I left the latte behind, its warmth mocking my cold resolve. I stepped into the rain, letting it soak my coat, a small act of defiance against the world that had just collapsed. Acknowledged wasn't surrender. It was my refusal to let him see me break. But as I walked toward my car, fury coiled tighter, a promise to myself that this wasn't the end. They'd cast me out, but I'd rise again, stronger, on my own terms. 4 months before that devastating spring morning in 2023, a shadow began creeping over my world at Caldwell Building Solutions. I was 28, Vice President of Operations, steering our Denver-based company toward a sustainable future with Riverfront Heights. Yet, as I walked the polished halls of our downtown office, An unease settled in my gut. My brother, Julian, 3 years my senior, had started lingering in my father Victor's office. Their voices hushed behind closed doors. I'd catch them glancing my way, conversations halting abruptly when I approached. "Just family matters," Victor would mutter, waving me off. My jaw tightened, a flicker of anger at their secrecy igniting within me. The first real crack appeared during a strategy meeting in late autumn. I'd spent weeks preparing a proposal to expand our eco-friendly materials across all projects, data proving their profitability. As I launched into my slides, Victor checked his watch, his face unreadable. "Let's hold off on this. Nora," he said, cutting me short. "We've got bigger priorities." Priorities I'd driven our revenue to new heights, yet my vision was dismissed without explanation. My fists clenched under the table, fury simmering at being sidelined in my own domain. Then came Leonard Warwick, a silver-haired consultant with a crocodile smile. Introduced as Victor's strategic advisor, he materialized in our offices one crisp November day, his son Miles trailing like a shadow. "Leonard's here to guide our expansion," Victor announced, not meeting my eyes. Expansion. I was the one charting our growth, yet I hadn't been consulted. Leonard's questions felt like probes, dissecting my contracts, scrutinizing my client ties. When I demanded to see his reports, Victor brushed me off. "They're not ready." My blood boiled. How dare they treat me like an outsider in the company I'd bled for? Smaller betrayals piled up. A sustainable vendor I'd championed was abruptly dropped. A marketing campaign for Riverfront Heights, my pride, was shelved. Each time, I pressed for answers, only to receive vague deflections. "We're reassessing. Timing's off." My office became a battleground of suppressed rage, my desk littered with notes from fruitless confrontations. One afternoon, I walked into a conference room to find Victor, Julian, Leonard, and 2 board members poring over Blueprint's Riverfront Heights, stripped of its solar arrays and green spaces. "What's this?" I demanded, my voice sharp. Leonard smirked. "Just exploring cost efficiencies." Cost efficiencies. Those features were the project's soul, approved by the city. Victor stood, avoiding my gaze. "We'll discuss later." "Nora," I stormed out, my heart pounding with indignation at their audacity to dismantle my work. The final warning came from my mother, Eleanor, during a quiet Sunday dinner at their Denver home. As Victor stepped outside to take a call, she leaned close, her eyes shadowed with worry. "Be careful, Nora," she whispered. "Things aren't right." Before I could press her, Victor returned, and she fell silent, her hands trembling as she passed the potatoes. I tried to catch her alone later, but she slipped away, leaving me with a gnawing dread. As I drove back to my apartment, Denver's lights blurring through my windshield, anger surged anew. Something sinister was brewing in my family's company, and I, the heart of its success, was being pushed to the margins, unaware of the storm about to break. On the 25th of April, 2023, my life imploded. I was 28, standing in a gleaming Denver conference room, heart soaring from a victorious meeting with Summit developers. Their CEO had gripped my hand, her eyes alight. "Nora, Riverfront Heights is revolutionary," she'd said, cementing my vision for Caldwell Building Solutions' sustainable future. I'd called my father, Victor, voice bubbling with triumph, eager to share the deal that would elevate our legacy. No answer. I brushed it aside, settling into a quiet Denver coffee shop to refine my notes, unaware a voicemail was poised to obliterate everything. My phone vibrated, Victor's name flashing. I pressed play, expecting praise. His voice, icy as a January frost. "Gutted me, Nora. You're terminated. The board's decision is final. Access revoked. Stay away. 20 seconds. And 8 years of my soul were incinerated." My hand trembled, the phone crashing onto the table, rage roaring through me like a wildfire. How could he? The man who'd taught me to dream in concrete and steel had cast me out without a shred of mercy. My vision blurred, fury urging me to shatter the cup in my hand. But I clenched my teeth, blood pounding in my ears, forcing a mask of calm. I sped to our downtown office, anger fueling every turn through Denver's streets. My keycard failed. A slap of humiliation confirming my banishment. Inside, my assistant, Clara, met me, eyes brimming. They emptied your office. Nora, she choked. Miles Warwick's taking it. Miles, Leonard's son, my replacement. The truth slammed into me, Julian. My brother. And Leonard had woven a web of lies, convincing Victor I'd schemed to seize control. My desk was barren. Awards vanished, my plant's soil strewn like my shattered dreams. A note in Victor's scrawl lay among the wreckage signed for severance. My blood seethed, indignation scorching my veins at their brazen attempt to silence me with scraps. That night, I parked across from my parents' Denver home, its warm lights a cruel mockery. Through the dining room window, I saw them Victor, Eleanor, Julian, Leonard, and Miles sharing laughter over dinner, as if I'd been erased from existence. My family, my blood, had discarded me. Each smile was a blade, carving deeper into my heart. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, rage surging so fiercely I nearly stormed in to hurl their treachery back at them. But I held back, refusing to let them witness my pain. Instead, I typed acknowledged to Victor's message, my finger stabbing the screen, a defiant vow to deny them my brokenness. In my apartment, Denver's skyline loomed through the window, Riverfront Heights' silhouette a taunting ghost. Clara's texts poured in my projects were gutted, my name scrubbed from records, my legacy dismantled. Julian and Leonard's coup had painted me as a traitor, my fists clenched, fury at their deceit threatening to choke me. I paced, the boxes of my office relics delivered like a corpse mocking my loss. They'd stolen my identity, my life's work, yet I stood unbowed, refusing to grovel. As I glared at the city lights, a fire kindled within me. They'd regret this betrayal. I'd rise, not for their empire, but for the woman they'd dared to underestimate, whose spirit they couldn't crush. 3 months after that gut-wrenching voicemail on the 25th of April, 2023, I was a ghost of myself. At 28, I'd traded my sleek Denver loft for a cramped studio in the city's gritty suburbs, its peeling walls and flickering bulb a mirror to my fractured spirit. My savings, once robust from 8 years at Caldwell Building Solutions, dwindled faster than I'd imagined. The non-compete clause choked my prospects, and industry whispers, fueled by Julian and Leonard's lies, branded me a traitor. Each rejection letter stung, but none cut deeper than the news that Riverfront Heights, my sustainable dream, had been warped into a soulless luxury complex. I drove past its site one dusk, the new sign a mockery of my vision. Rage surged, a molten tide, as I pounded the dashboard, cursing Victor's betrayal and my own naivety. Nights blurred into sleepless torment. I'd lie on my sagging mattress, Denver's distant lights taunting me through a cracked window. My phone, once alive with client calls, sat silent, its screen a graveyard of unanswered messages from former colleagues. Guilt gnawed at me had I been too trusting, too devoted to a family that discarded me. My mirror reflected hollow eyes, my once vibrant self buried under fury and despair. I'd snap at trivialities, a spilled coffee or a jammed lock, my anger a beast I couldn't cage. The boxes of my office relics gathered dust in a corner, their contents awards, photos, a wilted plant, a cruel reminder of my stolen legacy. One rainy evening in July, I sat cross-legged on the floor, a cheap bottle of wine in hand, scrolling through industry news. A headline screamed of Caldwell's cost overruns on Riverfront Heights. a bitter validation of my warnings. Yet it brought no solace, only a deeper ache for what I'd lost. I hurled the bottle against the wall, its shatter echoing my brokenness. Tears burned my cheeks, not for Victor or Julian, but for the woman I'd been bold, unstoppable, now reduced to this. I raged at myself, at the world, my voice hoarse from screaming into the void. Then, on a gray August morning, my phone rang, an unknown number piercing the silence. I almost ignored it, my hand trembling with distrust. Nora Caldwell. I answered, voice flat. "This is Sylvia Harper, Harper Community Works," came a warm, steady tone. Sylvia, a small-scale developer I'd met years ago, offered a consulting role for Riverside Hub, a community center project with tight budgets and green goals. "Your expertise is exactly what we need," she said. My heart stuttered, hope flickering like a candle in a storm. I hesitated, fear whispering I'd fail again, that my name was poison. But Sylvia's confidence, unshaken by industry gossip, stirred something dormant. "I'll do it," I said, my voice cracking with resolve. I hung up, staring at the rain-slicked window, Denver's skyline softened by mist. My fury hadn't vanished, it burned, a coal fueling my defiance. Riverside Hub was no Riverfront Heights, but it was a chance, a lifeline to reclaim my purpose. I stood, brushing dust from my jeans, and opened a notebook, sketching ideas for the project. The despair still lingered, heavy as the humid air, but a spark had ignited. I'd build again, not for my family's approval, but for the woman they'd tried to bury, whose dreams refused to die. By autumn of 2024, a year after Sylvia Harper's call pierced my despair, I was no longer the broken woman of that bleak August. At 29, I stood taller, fueled by a rage that had hardened into purpose. In my cramped Denver studio, I'd founded Horizon Verde Consulting, a beacon of sustainable design born from the ashes of my betrayal at Caldwell Building Solutions. Riverside Hub, the community center project Sylvia entrusted to me, became my proving ground. I poured my soul into it, researching reclaimed materials and passive solar systems to meet its tight budget and green ambitions. Each late night, hunched over blueprints, my anger at Victor, Julian, and Leonard morphed into a defiant vow I'd build something they couldn't touch. My days buzzed with relentless drive. I'd wake at dawn, Denver's skyline a quiet reminder of Riverfront Heights' loss, and dive into calculations, sourcing timber from demolished warehouses and affordable insulation that slashed energy costs. My hands, once soft from boardroom pens, grew calloused from site visits, my voice firm as I negotiated with suppliers. Riverside Hub wasn't just a job, it was my rebellion, proof that my vision, my worth endured beyond my family's treachery. Yet, doubt lingered, a whisper that my tainted name would doom me. I silenced it with work, my fury a forge shaping every decision. In September, a chance meeting shifted my perspective. Henry Voss, Victor's former partner, invited me to his modest Denver workshop, its shelves lined with handcrafted furniture. At 70, his eyes held a knowing glint. Over coffee, he shared a chilling truth Victor had ousted him decades ago, echoing the betrayal my grandfather inflicted on his own brother. "The Caldwells build empires and burn bridges," Henry said, handing me journals chronicling their history. My blood boiled, rage flaring at the generational curse that had claimed me. But Henry's words freed me. This wasn't my failure, but their pattern, my anger, once a weight, became a catalyst, urging me to break that cycle. I channeled that fire into Riverside Hub. By October, we'd finished a vibrant space with solar-shaded courtyards and a community garden fed by rainwater, all under budget. At the Mountain States Green Building Awards that fall, I stood in a crowded ballroom, heart-pounding as they announced Horizon Verde Consulting for Riverside Hub. The applause washed over me, a tide of validation. I gripped the glass trophy, my reflection fierce, a woman reborn. Female developers approached me after, their praise drowning out the industry's old whispers. Horizon Verde was thriving, my name no longer a curse, but a promise. Back at my studio, I traced the trophy's edge, Denver's lights softer now, no longer taunting. My rage hadn't faded. It burned, a steady flame driving me forward. Riverside Hub was my first victory, but not my last. I'd built something honest, something mine, without the Caldwell name. As I sketched plans for new projects, my resolve deepened. I wasn't just rebuilding my career. I was forging a legacy that honored my values, not my family's flaws. The pain of their betrayal still lingered, but it no longer defined me. I was Nora Caldwell, architect of my own future, and no one, not Victor, not Julian, could dim the light I'd kindled from their darkness. In the winter of 2024, as Denver's first snow blanketed the city, a call from my mother, Eleanor, shattered my hard-won peace. I was 29, standing firm in the success of Horizon Verde Consulting, my heart still scarred from the betrayal at Caldwell Building Solutions. "Nora, your father's had a heart attack," she said, her voice trembling. Victor, the man who'd cast me out, was clinging to life, asking for me. Rage flared. A bitter ember reignited. Why should I go? He'd stolen my legacy, let Julian and Leonard paint me as a traitor. Yet, a deeper pull love, perhaps, or closure, drove me to Mercy Hospital's sterile halls. Victor lay frail in his bed, tubes snaking from his arms, a shadow of the titan I'd revered. His eyes, clouded with regret, met mine. "Nora," he rasped. I was wrong. His words cracked open a wound I'd buried. He confessed Leonard's manipulation, how fear of losing control had blinded him to my loyalty. "I thought you'd destroy what I built," he admitted, coughing weakly. Fury surged, my fists clenching at his cowardice. "You destroyed me," I said, voice steady but laced with pain. "You chose lies over your daughter." He looked away, shame etching his face, but offered no apology. I wanted to scream, to demand he feel my anguish, but I held back, my anger tempered by his fragility. Eleanor gripped my hand, her eyes pleading for peace. I softened, not for Victor, but for her, the silent witness to our family's collapse. "I can't erase what you did," I told him, "but I wish you healing." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but a release of the rage that had chained me. Victor nodded, a tear tracing his cheek. As I left, his voice followed. "Your acknowledged haunted me. It showed your strength." I paused, my heart twisting, but didn't turn back. His words, too late, couldn't rebuild what he'd broken. Days later, I stood at the groundbreaking of Horizon Verde's newest project, a sustainable housing complex for Denver's healthcare workers. The air was crisp, sunlight glinting off fresh concrete, a foundation as solid as my resolve. My team, clad in green hard hats, cheered as I drove the ceremonial shovel into the earth. Pride swelled, untainted by the Caldwell name. Riverfront Heights was a distant memory, its betrayal fueling my ascent. Horizon Verde was my legacy, built on integrity, not deceit. Female colleagues embraced me, their trust a balm to old wounds. I'd risen, not to spite my family, but to honor the woman I'd become. Back at my studio, I gazed at Denver's skyline, its lights a constellation of possibility. My fury, once a wildfire, now glowed steadily, a beacon guiding my path. Victor's betrayal had shattered me, but from those fragments I'd forged something unbreakable. My journey through betrayal taught me a timeless truth. Resilience is born from pain, and our greatest triumphs often rise from our deepest wounds. In a society where trust can fracture, whether in families, workplaces, or communities, Nora's story reminds us that rebuilding is not just possible, but empowering. We can forge new paths, rooted in our values, no matter who seeks to dim our light. This story is a work of fiction created for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to attack or defame any individual, family, or organization. Any resemblance to real persons or events is purely coincidental. If this story moved you or sparked a thought, please let us know by commenting below. Your likes, shares, and subscriptions help us create more stories that inspire and entertain. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching and being part of our community.